Hi homeschool moms, this is Tana Meyer from Proverbial Homemaker, and today I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about math. I'm going to share my thoughts on math and the different curricula that are available, and I'm going to show you an inside look at Christian Light Education Math, which is one of the ones we've used from the very beginning. And so recently I had a reader contact me asking me about my advice about a particular homeschool math curriculum. And because I love to talk about curriculum, I ended up telling her all my thoughts about all the math curriculum. And I was explaining CLE Math and she was asking some questions. I'm like, you know what, I'll just throw together a quick review and I'll post it on YouTube, and that way I can show you inside of it and get a feel for how it looks. So that's what I'm going to share with you guys today. So usually when people ask me about math, homeschool curriculum, I share with them a handful of programs to check out, and they're kind of a sampling from different methods and techniques of teaching math, and I find them pretty helpful. And usually if you can go check out those, it will lead to rabbit trails, or you can check out some others, but it will give you a good idea of what's out there and available. Because math is one of those things, like most subjects I guess, but every kid is so unique. And so you need to take into account their learning style, and also, how teacher intensive the math program is, and if it fits your personal needs and styles, all sorts of things. So you can't really point to one particular math curriculum and say this is the one you should use. You just can't do that. I mean, even in our family, we have 6 kids, and even though we tend to end up with CLE Math over all the others, we have used a variety of others and tested them out, and some work and some don't. So you just kind of have to see what works. So the ones I usually tell people to check out are, first, the more traditional programs like CLE Math, which I'll show you a little bit more in depth in a minute, and also Saxon Math. And those are really good spiral programs. So they will teach the same concepts. They'll go back and review the concepts that your kids have learned over and over and work them into the future lessons. Whereas other programs are mastery programs where they want the kid to master a certain concept or a certain math idea first before they move on to the next one. And they may include some review, but usually not as much as like a spiral program. So CLE Math and Saxon are usually the ones that people talk about the most when it comes to spiral approach. The other one to check out, this reader had asked me, well, what about the fact that they're all black and white? Doesn't that bother your kids? It's never come up for us, but I know that some homeschool moms really like to have color because they feel like it stimulates their kids and makes it more interesting for them and keeps them on track, while other people don't like the color because they feel like it distracts their kids and causes problems. So you kind of just have to figure out which one works best for you. If you're looking for something with color, you might want to check out Horizons. I know it's a similar, more traditional style, but their workbooks are in color, at least the last time I checked. Some other ones worth checking out are Math UC. It's a pretty popular program, and it's more of a kinesthetics, for kinesthetic learners, where they do hands-on things with manipulatives to teach the math concepts. And a lot of homeschool families like that one. I would also check out Math Lessons for Living Education from Master Books. That one has, whereas you'll see in a minute, CLE has a lot of problems in each lesson, and that can be overwhelming for children. Whereas Math Lessons for Living Education has fewer problems, and it has a story aspect to it. They have a story that kind of goes along through the lessons. So you could check that out. We actually tried that one out for one of my kids, and it just didn't work out the way I thought it would. We tend to like math programs that have a lot of problems, and then I can cross off the ones I think are redundant. And she didn't like the stories, which was baffling to me because I thought they were cute. But I kept them because, for all I know, the next kid down the line is going to love that particular style. And another one you can check out that's also story-based, but even more so, is Life of Fred, which some families use as a core curriculum and others use it as a supplement or even as group learning, where they'll do it as a read aloud, and then their older kids will answer the questions that are at the end. So that's worth checking out. Let's see, what else did I recommend to her? And then online programs. So teaching textbooks and CTC Math are the two online programs that I usually tell people to check out. They have pros and cons to each one. I've done reviews on each of those. I don't think I've done a comparison of them, but they're both really good programs. They just have different things to offer. So right now, my older kids are using teaching textbooks, and they're really enjoying it, and it's working fine for them. We're having a problem because we're using the full online version right now. We're having a problem with our internet connection all of a sudden where we live, and so that's become a challenge. But they do have CDs and textbooks that you can actually buy if that's a challenge for you. So I would recommend checking out those just to get, if you're kind of new to this and trying to get a hold on the math curriculum options available, and then from there see what seems to work best for you and your family, and then kind of explore other options in that vein. All right, so I'm going to talk to you guys about CTC Math. So I'm going to flip the camera around and I'm going to show you, or not CTC Math, excuse me, CLE Math, Christian Light Education Math. So this is something I picked up at one of our very first conferences that we went to, homeschool conferences. And it is a Mennonite curriculum. And Christian Light Education has other things that we've used. We've used their language arts, but over time I kind of moved to a more Charlotte Mason language arts approach, so I don't use it anymore, but it's a solid program. And we still do use their reading lessons. They have like a reading comprehension thing where they have these little books that you can read and then questions to answer and little workbooks to use. My kids just really enjoy those. So right now I have a second grader who's going through, and that's her favorite right now with homeschooling. So we keep using those. I really appreciate this curriculum. One thing I would caution against is I personally wouldn't use all of the curriculum that they have available just because of doctrinal issues with maybe the history and the Bible specifically curriculum that they have. So I just wanted to throw that in there in case you're looking at them overall. I definitely would recommend at least taking a look at their math and their language arts and their reading programs. They're pretty good. All right, so I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to show you what we do for CLE Math in our home. Okay, so I'm going to show you inside CLE Math. Right now I have 2 students in Math 100, 1 student in Math 200. I'm going to show you what they look like. We've gone all the way through Math 400 so far, and we may be having some of our older kids pull back. So I'm going to show you, or jump back into CLE. So I'm going to show you what that would involve. Okay, so what you have when you start is this for example is the Math 100 teacher guidebook. You have to buy the guidebooks. They're a necessary part of the curriculum. This one is totally beat up. It usually has a cover. These are a lot bigger. Their newer versions of the guidebooks are split into 2, so they're a little bit less unwieldy. But basically this has everything you need as a teacher. And then it comes with these light units, they're workbooks. My kids actually like having this because they feel like it's a manageable small chunk of work, and then when they complete it they feel really accomplished and they move on to the next one. There are 10 light units in Math 100, and I believe that's the same for every single level. There's 10 light units. There's 10 of these workbooks. Each of these workbooks, I'll show you more in depth in a minute, but each of these workbooks have several lessons. I think it's 20, and then they also have a test and 2 quizzes that you take. So the way that this works is, when I'm getting ready to start, I have 2 boys in 1st grade right now. So when I'm getting ready to start school with them, I open up to the lesson we're doing, and you can see in here, let's see, I'll hold this up. You can see in here, so here's lesson 17. It tells you what the new skills and concepts are, and this has a lot of information in it. Once you get past a certain number of these where you're going through it with a fine-tooth comb and doing everything it says, you'll be able to do it a lot more spontaneously. You'll kind of have the rhythm down and be able to skim through it without having to follow the guide so specifically. But for the first several lessons, you'll want to really follow what it says. And nowadays, what I do is I open it, and my kids usually can get started with it on their own. And then what I look for is the new information. They'll point out new concepts that you need to teach, and they'll have things that you need to read off to them, like dictation and story problems and things. So you'll see, here's the worksheet or the page for each light unit. It'll show you what the answer should be, and over here it gives you instructions. So it tells you for each problem what your instructions will be to them, and it has in bold what your words are. So it's really scripted, as scripted as you want it to be, or you can kind of wing it. The only thing, so in 1st grade level, in level 100, and I think maybe a little bit in level 200, but definitely in level 100, you're going to need to read the story problems from the teacher guide to your kids, and you're going to read them dictation numbers. Definitely the story problems. I think in level 200, you still do the dictation, but you're not reading them the story problems. It's written in there because they're assuming that your kid knows how to read them. So they're written right in the workbooks instead of in the teacher guide. So what I do is I open this, and I'm sitting next to my kids doing something else or helping another child while they're working through their math. And then when they get to a part where they need mommy's involvement, they let me know, and then I do the dictation for them. You guys can see my awesome kitty temporary tattoo here. I do the dictation for them, and I read the story problem here, And any new information is something I talk with them. I'll show you guys what some of the new information looks like. Okay, right here. Here's lesson 16. It'll have a box around it that says new. And so this is new information. You know, I'll skim through this ahead of time so that when it gets to that point, I can read through it with them and make sure they understand that concept. Okay? And so here's the math unit. So at the beginning, it starts super simple, and it almost might seem too easy. You know, it talks about here's how you form the number 2, here's 2 petals, here's 2, you know, blocks. It has them practicing the numbers, doing math facts, pretty simple stuff, but it does accelerate pretty fast. So in the beginning, I'm doing a lot of hand-holding and one-on-one work with my kids as they're going through this. This is my 4-year-old is actually doing this along with the 6-year-old right now. But as they progress, they're able to really do a lot more of it on their own, and they just need the instructions. So here's that lesson 17. So he has learned the place values and the blocks and everything, and so he can do this on his own. He knows his new math fact. He practices it and we talk about it. I read the story problem and he writes it in. Or I'm sorry, the story problem's over here. I do dictation, and the rest of it he can do on his own, but I can do this. Once they get to, I believe, is it this one? Anyway, I can't remember which one. Once they get to a certain lesson in Math 101, they start doing speed drills. And I'll show you what that looks like in math in the 200 level, because they do it there too. So, and one thing, so after they're done doing their Math 101 lesson, we do the flashcards. The flashcards is something I totally neglected with my older kids, and I wish I hadn't, so now I'm being a little bit more diligent. But this is what the flashcard box looks like. Addition and subtraction, they have one for multiplication and division too. I got 2 sets of these because so my 2 first graders are using this. So it has new facts, once a day facts, and they tell you in this teacher guide when to move them back. So you can review every day of the week what you're doing. Right now there's not very many, so I just have them all in one. And so after my kids do their math lesson in their workbook, we go through these math facts together and I basically drill them. By the time they get into 2nd grade, about halfway through the first few light units, they're reviewing them on their own. Here's my daughter's. It's the same one. You can just get one if you need to, but it's organized differently. It's organized by groupings instead of just, new math facts, old facts. And so it'll tell her in the guide that she's reading, or not in the guide, but in her workbook, it'll say, okay, spend 10 minutes reviewing all the E flashcards. And so she'll do that. And sometimes I'll still drill her on them. One thing I want to mention is, okay, let me show you. Okay, never mind I said that. I'm not going to mention it. What I am going to tell you about is some of the things that you can get to go with your level 1. So I bought these. This comes with level 1. This is something you can get. You don't have to buy it. It's optional. But my kids really love it. And so my older kids really loved these, so I got a set for my younger boys. We haven't started yet. But these are calendar books. So it gives them a coloring page, and let me show you at the beginning. It has like all about me continued. They're drawing their hands and everything. Here's winter, so it has them color a page, and then it has the years. They can write, or the months, excuse me. They write the year, and then they can circle what the weather's like for that day. And I ask them some questions at the bottom, so you're teaching them these calendar skills. My older kids really enjoy them. Every one is different, temperature, weather, and then it has these charts in the back where they can chart their results. So anyway, my kids really enjoyed that. So I got one for each of the boys, and you could start this right when you start school. I'm kind of waiting. I introduced math to both the boys for the first time this year, a formal math program. I'm kind of waiting until that settles and it's kind of getting to that point, and then we'll introduce the calendar book. You can really do it whenever you want. And you can totally get it for other grades too. This is our counting chart. It's just this little laminated one. They sell it. You can make your own, but I buy it. They use this a lot for the lessons. It will tell them, you know, count from, you know, 20 to 30, and you can have them, especially at the beginning, using this counting chart if they don't know, or it can do skip counting using this. So we use this a lot. And then they also have, for first grade, this counting book, and it will tell you in the guide when to start this. And they basically do a row a day, except for on test days. And again, this is another one of those that I haven't started with my boys yet. I'm kind of waiting to add this piece. I try to be, you know, gradually introducing these things, but both my older kids also enjoyed this. So we're doing that. Okay, level 2, I wanted to show you. Okay, so my second grader, my new second grader this year, last year, she's the one where we tried math lessons for a living education, and that didn't go well. I had her do the whole level 1 anyway. And then when I decided, you know, this isn't, you know, I just felt like she would really enjoy it, and it just didn't work out. So I went ahead and had her do CLE level 1, the rest of CLE level 1 that she had stopped doing. And what we did was, here, I guess I should show you. As we went through, when you go through these light units, sometimes you'll notice that there's more practice than they really need. Some are shorter than others. Like here's an example. You know, here's write the sum. And then on the very next page, it has another section, write the sum. So what I did with her when I was trying to kind of, I knew that CLE would teach things in a different order than the other program, because that's how math programs are. They teach things in different orders, and that's totally fine. But when you switch programs, you kind of have to pay attention to that so that you don't miss big ideas. So instead of just skipping to grade 2, I had her complete grade 1, and I just had her do 2 lessons a day, but I just crossed out half the problems in each one. And she was totally able to do that. So in this case, I would have crossed that out, and maybe the just for fun, although they like to do those anyway. And that's kind of how we sped through level 1 and made sure she was all where she needed to be to start level 2. So she's doing level 2 now, and she's basically able to do it completely independently nowadays. There's a lot of information in these guidebooks, and I do recommend reading through them and understanding how they tell you to use the flashcards and the speed drills and all the different pieces. And then once you kind of get how they're teaching you to do it, then it's easy to adapt it to your own needs and kind of be more flexible. But anyway, it's the same sort of thing. You can see, it'll give you an overview. I pretty much ignore anything that has to do with schedule. They do give you at the beginning, like for those of you who really like schedules and such, they do give you overviews and schedules and everything. Where's that Light 101 book? Back in that teacher guidebook for Math 100, especially, they give you a lot of information about how to teach the lesson and the flashcards and the story problems. And see, they have this schedule, daily schedule, if you like those. You guys know by now I totally ignore schedules. We just pick up and we do the next lesson. That's how we roll. But all that information is in there if you want it. This is the same kind of thing in level 2 in all of them. They will give you what the sheet looks like so you know what your kids are looking at. They will tell you what to do to prepare. Again, by the time you get familiar with how things work, this won't look nearly as overwhelming, and you can just really skim through and find the new information and the new instruction and whatever you need to be involved with. And the farther you go in CLE, the less involved you are. So my daughter she's only right now in level 202, Light Unit 202, and she's doing it completely independently right now and just coming to me for any dictation and questions she has. That's it. And then I check it when she's done. When you get older, into older grades, you can have them start self-checking where they do their work, and then you go, that you have them use the teacher guide to check their own work. And then really you'll start to notice, I mean, obviously, you know, there's an integrity that needs to be taught there, and you'll catch if there's really a problem with that when it comes to the quizzes and tests, which you will grade. And every family does that a little bit differently, but that's how we do it. So anyway, here's the Math 200. I buy these handy math reference charts from CLE, and we have them posted. So this one is for grades 2 through 6, and it will have the multiplication tables, some simple instruction and facts on how to use things, how fractions work. On the back it has, you know, measurement equivalents, things about time, like days of the month, geometry things. So this gets a lot of use. The edges can even be used as a, what do you call it? Ruler, because ours are always getting lost. So anyway, these are really handy. So I recommend having these on hand, especially when they get into like 4th, 5th, 6th grades. Those are really helpful. Okay, so here is her Math 202, the one she's working on right now. So the way it works is, let me see here. So it has these little check boxes, count by 1 to 50, and so she did that. Practice your B and G flashcards for 5 minutes. So she has a timer and she times herself and does that. Do her speed drills on page 78. Record her score. I'll show you guys that in a minute. And then here's the new information, and this is where Mama comes in, and I go through the new information with her and make sure she understands it as she's doing the problems. Same thing here. This is, you know, we review this together, and then the rest of it she pretty much does on her own, and then I check it. At this level, I do check her work after she's finished. And what works best for this, especially with you busy homeschool moms who have a lot of kids, is to do it right away with them as a part of their lesson, you know, right when they're done, or to do it right before they start the next lesson, like build that into your routine. Otherwise, these will get, what happened with my older kids for a while is the math lessons that I was supposed to grade would build up, and then I would fall behind, and then they would miss concepts, and I didn't even know it. So build that into your routine somehow until they're able to do self-check on their own, until they're able to do their own correcting on their own of their regular problems. Okay, so when she's done with these, she reviews her flashcards, or I review them with her, and I showed you the flashcards. And then at the back, there's, the quizzes. For all of these, the quizzes are in the back like this, but it will tell you in the guidebook when to go do a quiz. And then the test is in the middle of the thing, and you're supposed to like pull it out, but I never do because I'm gonna lose stuff. So I just leave it there and they skip it. And then when it's at the end of the unit, they come back and do the test. Okay, so here's what the speed drills look like. So it'll tell her which speed drill to do. It'll say, you know, and you're supposed to complete as many as you can in 2 minutes. And when the timer goes off, she counts up how many she did, and I check to make sure they're all correct. She counts up how many she got right. And then what I do, it just depends on what you want to do with your kids. If you feel like they need more practice, you could have them complete it, you know, complete the rest that they missed, or you can just let it go. Right now, I'm just letting it go because she's doing a pretty good job on them. And then this has a graph that you fill in. So she goes and she fills in the number of facts she did correctly. But as I know the level 1 has this, and she really enjoys seeing her progress and stuff. So that is really what her math ends up looking like. So we really enjoy it. So if you are transitioning your kids to CLE, that can be challenging because, like I said, CLE has, you know, it starts out really gentle with the early grades, but then it advances pretty quick. And from what I understand, from what I'm seeing, it's about 1 to 2 levels ahead of other programs. So like, right, you know, if you had your kid, it depends on what program they're using right now. But if you switched them to CLE, like if they were about ready to start their 6th grade, you know, math, you might have to switch them to 5th grade CLE or even to 4th grade. And that can seem really disconcerting, but just think of them as levels and not grades. I mean, it really, like I said, it really does even out in the end. And our goal is to make progress, and they still will do really well on standardized tests and everything. But I wanted to mention a few things. If you go to the CLE website and you look at each individual level, you will see that they have downloadable they have samples too. They have downloadable samples of each one, but they also have placement tests that you can use to figure out where to place your kids. They also have these, which I didn't know about these before, and I want to mention them because they're not obvious. So these are math skill development sheets. So what I like about these, I'm gonna, you know, if we move one of the kids back to them, we'll see. The way you do it is, like this one says solving equations, and it tells you like 24 solving equations. That set of skills is in math level 506, so that's a specific workbook in lesson 1. Okay, and so you would go to wherever that is, and you would go through that with them and see if they understand that, and you would have them do some of the problems. And if you felt like they mastered that, then you know that they don't have to do, they don't have to go back and review that. So you kind of go to the beginning, it's like a placement test except by skill rather than by level. And then you can use this in a couple ways. You could, let's say you were, going from Math 6, or you had a upcoming 6th grader and you were wanting to use CLE Math. You could use the placement test, but maybe it said, okay, we think your kid should be placed in Math 5. So you go and you take this and you look at the Math 5 things, or maybe the Math 4 things, both of them, and you find them and you go through them with your kids. And if there are any areas where you feel like they could use a little extra instruction, then you go to those light units and you can just buy those specific light units and do those workbooks together, if that makes sense. So these are definitely worth checking out, okay? And these also, I noticed, they will let you photocopy and use these within your family. So if you wanted to keep these for multiple kids to kind of do review, could do it as an extra review, or to see if they have any holes in like their 4th grade math that you want to fill in or whatever. So anyway, that's about it. Oh, I had one more thing I wanted to mention. So this, when it comes to the flash drills, and I'm not talking about the flashcards, although I guess it would work for that. I'm talking about the flash drills, speed drills, these right here. Okay, so these are timed, and the 2nd grader that's doing this right now is doing great with these. But last year, they totally stressed her out and made her cry. And so we just didn't do them. And instead, what you can do if you have a kid who has that problem, they have some online things. If you don't want to do flashcards or speed drills, they have online things like extramath.com that you can use. But again, those are timed. And it would just, I have a couple kids that were just stressed them out. It wasn't motivating at all like some of my other kids. So this is totally an old school tool. Some of you might recognize it. Sunlight used to sell it, but now they don't. They have it just on, I'll leave you guys the website. But this is just this device where you can set whether it's timed practice, so the missed problems will be repeated, timed test, so these are both timed, problems not repeated, timed flashcards, time limit for each problem, do a table, so like all the times 4s, for example, or all the plus 4s in order with no time limit, do a table without any order, no time limit, and then do special problems missed or entered, which you could specify. So it has all these ways to specify what they're going to do. And so what I did, so you can set the time limit if it's a time limit one. You can specify whether they're practicing plus, minus, multiplication, or division. You can specify a level, like, let's do all the level 6 for my 6th grader, or a table number. So like all the times 4s, for example. And then you just push start. You can turn this sound on and off, and then they use these numbers down here to enter the answer. So this gets a lot of use for all of my kids, and it keeps them off the computer, but still doing something that they think is fun, so they do it for fun. And my kids who are stressed out by, the timer, so to speak, they can engage with this, and it will track the things that they missed for them and everything, so I don't have to do that, and they still learn their math facts. So that is something worth checking out if you have kids that are stressed out by that. So I think that's about it. Oh, of course, one more thing. This is also something you can get for your little ones who are learning time. They do sell it on the CLE website, but you can buy them elsewhere. But it's pretty cheap, actually, cheaper than Amazon, just to toss it in your cart if you're buying from CLE online. And so this, it's funny because they keep stealing it and playing with it, but that will just help them with teaching them time and everything, and it's accurate, so that's helpful. All right, let me know if you guys have any questions about CLE Math. I think I covered everything, but if not, I'll put it in the comments or update the note. All right, thanks guys.